collectors. And there are just so many different ways. I mean, what was done at those schools is one way to do it. At the Livingston Street, we did we daylit corridor roof with an insulated panel. So it was different approach. We internal circulation, so we lit that. I mean, there are different solutions, but I think that that aesthetic, if it is appealing, it's just something I've been in that building and it's great. I just thought it would be a nice, place to start discussion.
It also has to do with the scale and the materials. And you begin with that, you begin thinking about that as you're designing the building. And when you do a sloping roof, the roof is very important. And so, you begin with those sort of things, and we'll do, and Jane will do multiple schemes of that, and you begin refining those as you go through the design process. But every time you look at a community, you want the school, it's like I showed you that school my grandfather, that school represents something to that community, and it represents a design, that is integrated into that community with the materials and others. And it's really important that we look at that.
And we understand and we appreciate the history, like Paul says, in the story, and we know that this school is going to tell a story about the community. And so through the architecture, through the materials, through the historical elements that we have within the building, telling the story of Enka, and the childhood stories and those kind of things, really defines the heart of the school. We're not going to talk about sneaking in.
We're not going to sneak in.
But really to help give it that cultural significance, I think is hugely important. So it doesn't feel like it was just kind of dropped out of the sky and landed here. It's got a history.
I'm sorry. One last thing that I think is really important that means a lot to me is the daylighting that it brings into the facility, because I'm sure you're all familiar with the studies that have been done of the impact of daylighting on children, that children in daylit facilities perform from 5 to 18% better, higher test grade scores. So to me, doing something like that would be a wonderful way of washing the building with daylight. And I'm passionate about that. I think that we ought to give our children every advantage that we can, and the building can do that.
And I'll express my passion too, and as someone who's lived here almost 35 years, I mean, I think community context is important. I think it should be of a place, it should be a place. A school is a community asset, and it should reflect the community. And that's just my own personal bias as a parent. And I have a child in the public school system, so I mean, I appreciate the quality of the education we get for our children, but also the edifice of our community, the center of our community, are often our schools.
Mr. Craig? Ms. Churchill? Ms. Rifle?
Can you believe it?
Ms. Ball?
We didn't have access to any of the packet information you submitted with your qualifications. And this may have been in there, I don't know, but I was just interested in any information about change orders you've had in the past 5 years, if there was any design errors that resulted in change orders, or any sort of percentage of change orders in the past 5 years.
Our change orders run less than 0.5% in general, but some of those are owner desired change orders, and we do have some errors sometimes. We are human, and there will be some errors. We will stand up for our mistakes. That's really the simplest way to say it. That's why we have Roger, and why we value him so much, is that he's got a structural master's in structural engineering as well as a master's of architecture, and he heads up our construction contract administration team, and he's seen it all. He knows what details work, what details don't work, which really helps clean up a lot of the errors, but we will stand behind our work.
And I will say for our firm too that, we don't have a history of major change orders. They have been typically, we're working, for example, at Appalachian State, which will attest, I mean, the university gave us information what was underground versus shovel. They hit something that nobody knew was there. So we have change orders of unforeseen, but like LS3P, we've had a lot of change orders typically at the end where contingency hasn't been used, and the client wants to add value back, add something back to the project. And that's, I mean, we have contingencies for a reason, and then to be able to
You
use it.
kind of look
quickly
at it
is
in
nice.
three parts. One is, the owner requesting. It's just sometimes, and as fast as this thing's gonna go, there's sometimes when you just wanna add a something. So that's a number. So then there is the kind of unforeseen conditions part of this. There may be something under the ground, whatever. And then there is designer error things. And you kind of parcel those out into three different things and begin to look at them independently. One of the real values of the CM at risk process is to be able to look to the future and to already have that constructability component, because that's where it comes into trouble, is when you don't have the subcontractors putting their input into it, and then, it's like the little sawtooth thing. There's a constructability component to that. We need to make sure that the CM is involved in that right up front, because they may have a better idea of how to put it together that will minimize both the cost and the time impact of doing something like that. And so we work together as a team, and the goal is to minimize exactly what you're talking about, because nobody wants change. Nobody wants change. This board does not want change. We get that. But I'm just telling you, some of these things are those are ways that we're trying to minimize that. Like Susan said, we're not perfect. We haven't been perfect for 92 years, but somehow we're still here, and we've done a whole lot of stuff.
And lastly, just we like to strike a balance. We want to give you the latest technology so you can see your building three-dimensionally before we put the shovel in the ground. But Roger and working with CM, you cannot replace that experience. That experience is an intangible, which is critical to the team to be able to take out a sheet of paper, draw up a flashing detail, and say, have you thought about this way of doing it? And that level of experience in that old tech way, plus the new tech, that balance that we have, we pride ourselves on, and we want to share that information with you, with the district, with the construction manager. We're not one of these architects that says it has to be this way. Well, we'll make a recommendation, but we want to get the best product and the best wise use of tax
Been working
dollars.
with Jane and her group, it's the best combination of all of that, because Jane is so good at looking at all that stuff, working with everybody.
Well, and I think too, this group has a lot of repeat clients, and so I think that speaks well for us institutional clients. So with that, I see Chair's got to move on, so thank you all. I look forward to hopefully working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Right on time.